Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. We're going to be talking about one of the best pieces of Sasquatch evidence ever recorded today. We're talking about the Sierra Sounds, but before I get into that, I just wanted to say I'm up here going up this creek looking for tracks or anything unusual because last night I had some weird things happen around camp. I don't know if it is actually anything notable or if it's just me playing tricks on myself, but at one point last night, I got a really weird feeling like I was being watched, and I don't get that feeling very often anymore, like after doing this for so long, but I had a feeling. I was just sitting there around camp listening to music with my Bluetooth speaker, and I'm sitting there, and I start feeling that creepy feeling like there's eyes on you, and then you start kind of looking around, then your mind starts playing tricks on you. I started feeling weird, and then I start hearing this sound that sounds like a whistle. And I'm like, okay, it's probably just a bird. Nothing out of the ordinary has happened since I've been at this spot. It's probably nothing. And so I keep hearing this like whistle sound, and I can't tell what it is. I'm thinking bird. I'm still leaning more towards it being a bird and it just being a coincidence that these two things were happening at the same time. So then a little bit of time passes and I start hearing coyotes on the other side of the North Saskatchewan River. You can hear what direction they're calling from, but you can hear coyotes, and it's getting later in the evening. It's getting darker out. I start hearing these coyotes, and from behind me at one point, which is in a different direction where these coyote sounds are coming from, like the direction behind me would have been like north-ish. From that direction, there's like a little creek that flows into the North Saskatchewan, and then on the other side of that creek, there's a treed area, and I'm pretty sure there's like an area that you can camp in there. I haven't really actually been in there, but I've heard people in there before. Like you could hear voices, and then you can see people coming out of the trees to the river to like play in the water and fish and do things of that nature. Anyways, as I'm hearing these coyotes, I swear I can hear someone from that area, like in the trees there, replicating the coyote sound, like making a coyote noise, but it sounded like a woman. Like 100% sounded like there was a woman in the trees there imitating these coyotes. And I heard it like once. And then I was like, I didn't know there was anybody over in that spot over there. Because the whole day, like I hadn't seen anyone at all. Haven't heard any vehicles drive in there. You can usually hear quite a ways. Like out here, the sound carries. Didn't hear anyone pull in there. So I didn't think anyone was in there, but I heard this coyote and then this, what sounded like a woman imitating the sound. I'm like, oh, there must be someone in there. And then I'm listening longer, and then I heard it happen again. It did it 2 or 3 times, 2 times for sure, where I was like, there's someone like back there in the trees making noises. So anyways, I just thought that was that. And then like this was around 11 p.m. It's dark out now. All of a sudden I hear what sounds like tree knocking or some sort of banging noise. It sounded like wood on wood. So I pulled my phone out to actually record and see if I could pick it up, and you can actually hear it faintly. You can hear these wood knocking sounds, but it's not like, there's no like rhythm to it really. It's not like, you know when you watch these Bigfoot videos, you see people banging on trees and they do it in like a series of 3 knocks, like knock, 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 and then they'll stop. It wasn't anything like that. It was just like, it seemed random, the pacing of it and everything. So anyways, that went on for like 10 minutes off and on. It wasn't very long. You could just like, you'd hear the wood knocking for a bit, and then it would stop, and maybe you'd hear it again for a little while. I think it happened like a few times, like off and on. but the overall duration was probably no longer than 10 minutes. And I was able to get a few clips of that, but couldn't hear anyone in that spot all day. Like, usually you can hear voices, and I thought it was unusual that all evening I couldn't hear voices coming from there other than, I swear it sounded like a woman imitating a coyote call. And I thought it was weird, and I was already creeped out after getting the feeling of something watching me, but who knows what it is. I'm walking up this creek, exploring, looking for any sort of tracks, afterwards. I haven't gone into that treat area yet, and I'll probably go into there later and check things out, see if there's any prints or anything. I don't want to walk directly into that area if there is people in there. Just like walk in there and surprise them. They'd be probably super weirded out by a guy dressed in like camo. So we'll wait. We'll see what happens today for the rest of the day into the evening, and I don't know. There's probably nothing there. It's probably my mind playing tricks on me. But the Sierra Sounds. The Sierra Sounds are probably, right after the Patterson-Gimlin film, the best example of Bigfoot evidence, in my opinion. The Patterson footage is the best visual evidence and the best sound evidence. I have always believed to be the Sierra Sounds. These were shot back in the early 70s in the Sierra Nevada mountains by a guy named Ron Moorhead. There was another individual that was involved back in the day named Al Berry, and he would go up there with Ron Moorhead to, investigate these strange happenings that were going on. Originally, there was like a group of hunters that would always go up there, and Ron joined the group, and they would have these strange experiences where they would hear these unusual vocalizations that really do, when you listen to them carefully, it sounds like whatever these things are, because there's multiple creatures, whatever they are, they're talking to each other and communicating with actual language. And it's not like they're just using words. Like, you can tell that there's different emotions being emitted as well. Like, when they're talking, they're not just talking. There's like emotions, and you can tell sometimes if they're angry or if they're joking and laughing, if they're more like playful or if they're like really serious. You can tell. And so all this stuff was recorded back in the 70s. It's all on recorded on an analog sound recorder. It's not digital. So it's the same thing with the Patterson footage. This evidence that has stood the test of time, like these Sierra Sounds haven't been proved to be wrong. Like, they haven't been debunked yet. These old pieces of Bigfoot evidence have all been recorded on old formats. Like, Patty was filmed on Super 16, or was it just 16? I don't know, it was 16 millimeter film. The Sierra Sounds are recorded on like analog, tape. This similar to the Super 16, right? It's on old formats, and it stood the test of time. It's interesting because these Sierra Sounds, they haven't been recreated really. Like, some people can recreate them, kind of. Like, a person can imitate them, but they can't imitate it to the extent that these sounds are. Like, the range of frequency that these sounds hit are so much more than what a human is capable of. There's humans that exist that can push the boundaries of what is capable vocally, but whatever these things are, it's not just one, whatever they are, the range that they can move their voice is so much more than a human being. So to have multiple people who can do that is pretty impressive. And the sound just resonates so much more deeply than a human voice. You can tell on a lot of the tapes that it just, it picks up on the microphone differently than the human voice does. Because there's certain spots on these Sierra Sound recordings where Ron Moorhead and the people he's with are imitating these creatures, they'll hear the creature make a sound in the distance, and then they'll try and imitate it to have some sort of like communication back and forth. And you can just tell the difference in the human voice. It has a very small footprint compared to whatever these creatures are. It just hits the microphone so much differently. It's like more deeply and rich, you know, the resonance is more intense. So to have 3 beings out there who can do that, because I think there was a male, a female, and a younger one. I think there was a few creatures. To have multiple people who can do that is pretty crazy. You know, if you're going to hoax something like this, you'd probably just find one person who can do it, you know, and then, I don't know, it hasn't been replicated to that extent. So that is interesting. It hasn't been disproven, just like the Patterson footage. What is it? This is one of the best pieces of evidence, of Bigfoot evidence, that supports Sasquatch being more than a flesh and blood creature. Because the whole time they're out there, they'll hear these crazy sounds, these vocalizations that will sound as like you would think the creatures are in the camp. That's how close they are. But never once did they actually get a glimpse of one of these things or get a photograph or video evidence. These things would come around, they would drain the batteries that they brought for their recorders. They would try to bring cameras at first, but eventually they just stopped bringing them because they could never get any sort of photographic or video evidence, you know. It's just the sounds they would hear, and these things would sound like they're right there, but they could never see them. I think there was one instance where Ron saw a silhouette or a shadow or something out of the corner of his eye, but never once, you know, was an actual Sasquatch creature actually seen. Is it Sasquatch? Is it something completely different? Is it something similar? Are there multiple things out there in the woods that are covered in hair and bipedal? You know? Because what happens in the Sierra Sound story is, it seems to be so much more than just the regular Bigfoot encounter. There's a movie, a documentary, Missing 411, The Hunted, and Ron's story is featured at the end of that film, and they do a really good job kind of going over everything. And if you want to hear more of the Sierra Sounds, there's a few podcasts out there that are really good. I think Sasquatch Odyssey is one of them. There's a few episodes on there where they play a lot of the Sierra Sounds, and Ron Moorhead's actually on an episode. And then there's a gentleman, Scott Nelson, I think is his name. He was someone who came along back in like 2008 who started analyzing the sounds, and he specializes in language. Like, he used to work in the military deciphering languages and translating and whatnot, so he's kind of an expert in that field. If you want more information, like more detailed in-depth look on the Sierra Sounds, I'd check out these podcast episodes. Sasquatch Odyssey is what it's called. And then check out Missing 411, The Hunted. It's a really good documentary, and you can see images of the Sierra camp, and it really gives, you know, a good sense of atmosphere to the Sierra camp. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. The Sierra Sounds, I think they're legit. I think they're 100% real, and I think they really demonstrate that there's something more to Bigfoot than it just being a forgotten primate of this earth. That's all for this video. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching this episode of Mountain Beast Mysteries.